How was a man, nicknamed the Rapist, suspected of indecent exposure 3 times, still a serving member of the police in a position of power? It's a case that sent a nation into riot, demanding a change in the safety of women in the UK and the criminal justice system as a whole. How was this man able to go out, kidnap, rape, and murder an innocent girl on the 3rd of March 2021? This is guilty by association, and this is the case of Sarah Everard. York is found in northeast England, founded all the way back in 71 AD, which is way further back than either you or I can remember, but not for the ancient Romans who created it, or the Vikings who took over it later and renamed it Wild Boar Bay. It's considered to be one of the world's most haunted cities, so if you like your Conjuring and Paranormal Activity movies, you're on the right track for a fun-filled holiday. Just don't complain when you come back possessed. There's 365 different pubs, so you do the math. That's a new pub to get a different pint in every day. It's made up of around 208,000 people throughout its 271.9 square kilometres, and someone who was raised amongst them was Sarah Everard. Sarah Everard was born in 1987 in Surrey, which is about 221 miles away from where she grew up in York. While in York, as a youth, she attended Fulford School, which had other notable former pupils from Rowan Coulthard and Fiona Mosley, who were successful in their own fields of professional snowboarding and writing. After Fulford, she attended Durham University, studying for a geography degree, eventually gaining a 2-1. She was a very clever cookie. Her father is a professor of electronics at York University and her mum a charity worker. This explains her brains as well as her kindness. Her friends described her as being an exceptional friend who would drop anything for her pals. 12 years after gaining her degree, she would move 200 miles from her hometown of York to the capital, London, where 2 of her other siblings lived. In London, Sarah worked as a marketing executive for a digital media agency living in the Brixton Hill area. Sarah Everard was visiting a friend near Clapham Junction, west of Clapham Common, which is a 220-acre park in London, and around a 50-minute walk home to the Brixton Hill area. She left her friend's house at around 9 PM, walked across the common and along the A205 South Circular Road. En route home, she phoned her boyfriend for around 15 minutes and agreed to meet him the next day. Sarah was a no-show. While walking home, Sarah was picked up on camera multiple times, ranging from a doorbell camera, a bus, and ironically, a passing police car. Wayne Couzens was born in Dover on the 20th of December 1972, attending Mount High Secondary School. He was described as a cold-hearted wannabe bully who once shot his friend for fun with an air gun and even enjoyed dressing up as a ninja, who even used throwing stars. He picked on people who couldn't stand up for themselves or fight back, people he felt he had dominance over. This made him develop into a sinister presence in Dover, according to former classmate Warwick Lewis. After Mount High, Couzens spent 2 years in the Army Reserves, serving in the 3rd Battalion, the Princes of Wales Royal Regiment, for 2 years from 2002 onwards. Couzens would work as a mechanic in his family-run business, BCB Dover Garage and Body Shop, up until 2015, until his father retired. While still working as a mechanic, he joined the Civil Nuclear Constabulary on the 7th of March 2011. The CNC provides law enforcement and security at any relevant nuclear site and for nuclear materials in transit in the UK, with over 1,500 officers and support staff. Couzens served at Sellafield Nuclear Plant for 8 months in 2011 before moving to the CNC site in Kent up until the 9th of September 2018, when he decided to leave for the Metropolitan Police Service. Couzens' time at the CNC, well, it just wasn't very normal, let's say that. He made female employees feel so uncomfortable that he was sickly nicknamed the Rapist. Couzens was also sighted driving around naked from the waist down while serving in the CNC way back in 2015. A complaint was raised, however no further action was taken, and Couzens continued to serve, leading to his transfer to the Met. This, however, wouldn't be the only allegation of indecent exposure. Days before the 2nd of March 2021, Wayne Couzens was accused of flashing on another 2 occasions, one being in a fast food restaurant. That again were not properly investigated by the police. Wayne Couzens was a clearly disturbed man who the police should have and could have taken action on sooner, yet they didn't, on 3 separate occasions. How was this man still a serving officer? Failure is an understatement. Couzens had finished his 12-hour shift at the Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Squad, a branch of the Met, at 7 AM. He collected a white Vauxhall Astra from Enterprise Car Hire in Kent at 4:45 PM and began driving the streets, preying on vulnerable women. He spotted Sarah Everard on her walk home at around 9 PM. At 9:35, a bus camera captured 2 figures standing beside that white Vauxhall Astra. The other figure standing beside it was Sarah Everard. Sarah's boyfriend would report her missing that next day, just after 8 PM. It didn't take long for the Met's Specialist Crime Unit to escalate it from a missing persons case after their level of concern increased, given how completely out of character it was for her just to vanish.
I just wanted to provide you with an update into the investigation. It continues at pace. We are currently knocking on doors. We've spoken to over 750 different people and addresses have been visited. We continue to receive hundreds of calls from the public, received over 100 calls so far, and follow up the information and pursue every line of inquiry that comes out of that. We've reviewed hours of CCTV around her movements on the night, but I appeal for people to come forward with more CCTV, particularly anyone with a dash cam, for example, delivery drivers who may have been driving along Poinders Road on the Wednesday at around last Wednesday at around 9:30 at night. The evidence that you have on your dash cam could be absolutely vital to finding Sarah. We continue to search the area. Anyone around the area where she disappeared from may notice a lot of police activity, and we continue our searches.
The police had no idea what they were looking for. Why would anyone hurt Sarah? There was no motive. She had no enemies. Police sieved through CCTV footage from the path that Sarah took on that night home, tracing her footsteps and crucially showing Sarah speaking to that shadowy figure next to the white Vauxhall Astra. Crucially enough, by luck, a passing bus had picked up the plate of the van. They now had a lead to follow. That lead, of course, led them straight to that Enterprise Car Hire in Dover, where staff handed over the details, and to the shock of the police investigating, the numbers given matched one of their very own, Wayne Couzens. He had some explaining to do. Couzens began acting suspiciously right as the police were honing in on him. On the 5th of March, he phoned into his work, suffering with stress. At 2 PM that same day, CCTV footage at a local B&Q DIY store in Dover captured him buying 2 large builder's bags. On the 6th of March, he phoned his supervisor, declaring he no longer wanted to carry a firearm, which he was prohibited to do given his position. On the 8th of March, when he was due to return back to work, he called in sick. All of the growing evidence and strange behaviour gave police a good enough reason to make a move on Couzens, and at 7:50 PM, Couzens was arrested at his home in Dale, Kent. Upon his arrest, his phone had been wiped of all data, adding further fuel to the fire that he had something to hide. Police conducted an emergency interview without a solicitor in an effort to get any info that could help find Sarah ASAP, with there being a slight glimmer of hope in their eyes that she was still alive. Upon being interviewed, he was shown an image of Sarah. He denied knowing her, then suddenly he did know her. Couzens told his colleagues in the Met that he frequently used prostitutes, and 2 weeks prior to Everard's disappearance, he had underpaid one of these prostitutes who was involved in a gang, and that gang had in turn begun threatening him as well as family. He had to deliver them another girl in return, or else they would harm him and his family. They too had been spying on him and his family in his home. That girl who had been given in an exchange was Sarah Everard. He was flashed by a Mercedes van with Romanian plates, then pulled over into a lay-by before giving Everard to 3 Eastern European men. This was all, of course, all complete and utter bullshit, except the kidnapping of Sarah Everard part. Police identified that Couzens and his wife had bought a small plot of woodland off Grid Lane in Ashford, where Wayne Couzens' cell phone records placed him shortly after the disappearance.
I want to start by saying that my thoughts and prayers are with Sarah Everard's family and her friends, at this incredibly difficult and painful time. As you are aware, a man has been arrested on suspicion of Sarah's murder. This evening, detectives and search teams investigating Sarah's disappearance have found, very sadly, what appears to be human remains. The discovery was made in an area of woodland in Ashford in Kent.
Sarah was found dead in one of the builder's bags that Wayne had bought from B&Q around the small wooded area that he and his wife owned on the 10th of March 2021 in a nearby river. She was identified through her dental records. Couzens had kidnapped Sarah, raped her and then choked her to death. A man who was sworn to protect the public had squeezed the last breath out of her. Couzens was arrested a day prior to the grim discovery on suspicion of kidnapping, then re-arrested after under the suspicion of murder on the 10th. A day afterwards, Couzens was hospitalised after sustaining significant head injuries while in his cell that are presumed to be self-inflicted. As of making this video, Wayne Couzens has pleaded guilty to the rape and kidnapping of Sarah Everard. He admits responsibility for her killing, but has not yet entered a plea, as of yet. What happened to Sarah Everard sent shockwaves across the UK. People were disgusted that a serving police officer who's meant to protect the public could do this, and worst of all, that they could have more than definitely stopped it. There were protests in the streets demanding more safety for women, and rightly so. Virgils were organised in our memory. However, given the pandemic, the scenes got ugly when the police intervened to implement social distancing rules. Sarah Everard was a bright, caring, young lady who should be remembered for the person she was, not for the woman who was raped and murdered by a serving police officer. She was far more than that. If any good is to come of these events, it should be that action is taken to make the streets a safer place. Action like actually locking up and registering Wayne Couzens as a sex offender to keep him off the streets, monitoring his every move and ensure something as heinous as this never happens again. That was the case with Sarah Everard. It was huge in the UK, however some of you across the pond might not have heard about it, and it's definitely an important one. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, then please drop a like. It helps me more than you'll ever know. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.